They whispered your failure before you even spoke. They scripted your downfall before you took your first step. They buried your name before you had the strength to spell it. They looked at you and saw nothing but dust, skin and defeat. They made sure you heard it too in their laughter, in their silence, in their indifference, in the way the world kept moving forward. While you stood shackled to your pain, to your doubt, to your bloodline of broken people, no one expected fire from ashes. No one believed in the echo of your scream, buried under centuries of silence, but you heard it. You heard it like thunder cracking the sky in your chest. You heard it when your hands were raw from holding on too long. You heard it when every breath tasted like loss and every dream looked like a lie. You were not chosen. You were not blessed. You were not born under stars that sing of greatness. You were born under the weight of generations that broke before they ever bent. You were born into storms and learned to swallow lightning without blinking. They told you not to try. They told you to know your place, to sit quiet, to stay broken, to wait your turn, as if greatness was a thing handed out like bread to the obedient, as if survival itself wasn't already your rebellion. They told you to be afraid of the dark, but they never knew you were born in it, molded in it, raised by shadows that taught you to see with your bones instead of your eyes. They taught you to walk through pain like it was a hallway. They taught you to bleed with purpose and scream only when you meant to bring the world to its knees, and so you rose. Not like the sun, not golden, not soft, not gentle. You rose like vengeance. You rose like everything they tried to bury came back with claws and teeth and fury. You rose like a curse. They couldn't kill you. Rose not because you wanted to, but because you were never given the mercy of staying down. You were the one who crawled when your legs broke. You were the one who remembered your name when the world tried to erase it. You were the one who stitched yourself back together with trembling hands and spit and fire. You were the one who looked into the mirror, saw a grave and said, "Not today." You were the one who stood when it would have been easier to vanish. You were the one who turned pain into ritual, loss into blueprint, suffering into scripture. You built your own altar from the bones of every time you almost gave up, and you prayed not to gods, but to the fury inside you that never stopped screaming. Even when you did, you weren't meant to rise. They were right about that. You were meant to break, to disappear, to be a name they forgot before they even learned to pronounce it. But they underestimated the kind of hell it takes to forge someone like you. You turned the silence into scripture. You turned the grave into a throne. You carved your name into the stone walls they built to keep you out. They didn't see it coming. They couldn't have. Because people like you aren't in their books. You don't belong in their fairy tales. You don't wear the crown with light. You wear it with scars. You earned it in the dark, alone, screaming through every layer of hell they wrapped around your soul. They tried to make you small, didn't they? Tried to convince you that you were the mistake, that your voice didn't matter, that your heartbeat was just noise. But you took their hatred like fuel. You didn't just survive it, you drank it, swallowed it whole, and let it burn into something beautiful. You forged yourself in fire not meant for the living. You became something they couldn't understand, couldn't classify, couldn't tame. And now you stand where no one thought you could, not because they let you, but because you refused to die quietly. There is a kind of power in being unwanted, a kind of clarity in being discarded. When the world throws you away, you realize you owe it nothing. No pleasantries, no apologies, no explanations. You stopped asking for permission. You stopped waiting for someone to see your worth. You built your own legend in silence, brick by blood-soaked brick. You kept going when no one was watching. You cried, then wiped your tears with iron resolve. You stumbled, then planted your feet deeper. Every time you broke, you learned a new way to rebuild. This legacy, this thing you're becoming, it wasn't gifted. It was stolen from fate. You reached into the void and clawed it from the hands of gods who never meant for you to exist. Still, you rose. Still, you climbed. And now the same people who doubted you, the ones who laughed at you, dismissed you, called you lost, they whisper your name with awe, with fear, with reverence, because they see now. You weren't weak, you were just unfinished. You were just waiting for the moment to become everything they couldn't imagine. They told you your pain was a weakness, that your grief made you fragile. But grief became your sword. Pain became your shield. You didn't run from the monsters. You became one. You didn't run from the monsters. You became one. You didn't avoid the fire. You walked into it and came out tempered, sharp, and untouchable. They say legends are born in light, but you know better. Legends are made in the dark, in the cold, in the lonely hours when all you have is your heartbeat and the fury to keep it going. You weren't meant to rise, but you did. And now they don't know what to do with you. You are not polite. You are not neat. You are not quiet or soft or manageable. You are wild and heavy and full of the kind of truth that makes liars choke. You are every no they ever threw at you turned into a war cry. You are the sound of destiny when it refuses to be ignored. You are the embodiment of resistance, not the kind they talk about in speeches, but the kind that shows up with blood under its nails and fire in its throat. You didn't just rise, you transformed. You evolved past their limits, their definitions, their expectations. They tried to confine you to their vision of who you should be, small, silent, easy to erase. But you took the box they built for you and shattered it against the sky. You took the words they used to chain you down and turned them into weapons. You rewrote the script. You took control of the narrative. And you didn't do it to be worshipped. You didn't do it for validation. You did it because you had no other choice. Because survival was your rebellion and rising was your revenge. Let them talk. Let them tremble. Let them choke on the memory of the person they tried to kill with their doubt. Let them remember every time they said you wouldn't make it. Let their voices echo in your triumph, a cruel, ironic chorus to the symphony you've become. You carry their disbelief like armor. You wear their underestimation like a crown. And every step you take forward now is a victory they can't erase. You weren't meant to rise. You weren't meant to matter. You were supposed to stay in the dirt, forgotten, broken, fading into the silence like so many before you. But you chose something else. You chose to fight, to suffer, to struggle, to become. And in doing so, you became a force. Not a person, not a soul, not even a legend. Something deeper, something eternal. You became proof. Proof that even from the lowest places, greatness can crawl its way out, covered in scars and screaming like thunder. This legacy you're building, it's not made of applause or praise. It's made of endurance, of nights you didn't sleep, of mornings you didn't want to wake, of days you moved forward while your heart was bleeding. You kept going. That's the story. That's the truth. That's the power. You were never meant to win, and yet here you are, still rising, still walking, still creating something immortal out of everything that was supposed to destroy you. And now every step you take leaves a mark, a wound in the earth that reminds it you existed. You are the proof that destiny is not something granted, but something seized. You are the living embodiment of defiance. They tried to erase you, and you turned their erasure into your foundation. You stood in the ashes of their expectations and built your cathedral. They said you were broken, and you proved that broken things do not mean weak things. They mean dangerous things. Things that no longer follow rules. Things that have nothing left to lose and everything left to burn. You looked at the mountain and climbed, not because you wanted glory, but because the alternative was dying at the bottom, with their laughter ringing in your ears. You didn't have the luxury of ease. You didn't have a silver path. You had shattered glass and bleeding feet and your own breath as your only witness. But you climbed. You endured. And now, they can't pretend you don't exist. Now, they have to look you in the eyes and reckon with the storm they created when they tried to break you. There is power in being underestimated. There is strength in being invisible until you're not. While they were watching each other, chasing their crowns and empty victories, you were underground, becoming something else. You were learning patience. You were sharpening your mind, your will, your pain. You were taking every cut, every slight, every insult, and building something out of it. They gave you fire and expected you to burn, but you learned to breathe smoke. You learned to become the flame. And now they fear you. They won't say it, but you see it. In their hesitation, in their stares, in the way they no longer laugh when you enter the room, because now they feel it. The weight you carry, the silence you command. You are no longer the person they pitied or ignored or mocked. You are the reckoning. You are the roar in the distance that grows louder with every second. You are the shadow that stands tall in the daylight, refusing to shrink for anyone. You are the memory they tried to bury, clawing its way back to life. You didn't rise to prove them wrong. You rose because staying down was never an option. You rose because your soul refused to die with your body. You rose because your spirit is made of something ancient, something relentless, something holy in its wrath. Every time they tried to end you, they forgot one thing. Some people are not built to break. Some people are built to endure, to outlast, to rise again, again, and again, until even death gets tired of trying. They'll say you were lucky, that you found a way, that the stars aligned, that someone gave you a chance. But you know the truth. No one gave you anything. You took it. You carved your space into existence with nothing but grit and fury. You didn't wait to be noticed. You didn't beg for permission. You walked through the door, tore it off the hinges, and made it yours. You didn't just survive the fire, you became it. Now, you carry it in your voice, your eyes, your bones. You walk like someone who's seen the bottom and decided it was too small. This is legacy, not fame, not fortune, but the undeniable truth that you kept going, that you refused to vanish, that your existence is a permanent wound on everything that tried to kill you. This is the kind of story they don't put in history books. It's too real, too raw, too honest. But it lives in the whispers of those who remember your rise. It lives in the heartbeat of every person who saw you fall and watched you get back up, bleeding and unbowed. You weren't meant to rise, but now your name is carved in fire. You are no longer the child who cried for help. You are no longer the soul who asked, "Why me?" You are the one who became the answer, the one who forged meaning out of madness. You turned every betrayal into a lesson, every scar into a reminder, every setback into fuel. And when you were surrounded by darkness, you didn't wait for a light. You became your own. You burned so bright that even your demons had to take a step back. Now they look at you and wonder how. How did you survive? How did you rise? How did you turn despair into domination? And the answer is simple. Because you had to. Because the world didn't give you a path. so you carved your own through its bones. Because silence didn't comfort you, so you learned to scream. Because no one saved you, so you became the thing that saves others. And now your pain has purpose. Now your wounds carry wisdom. Now your voice makes the ground tremble. You are not a mistake. You are not a fluke. You are a storm centuries in the making. You are the product of every no, every failure, every locked door, every night spent wondering if you'd make it. And you did. And you will. Because this isn't the end. This is only the beginning. Legacy doesn't rest. It builds. It spreads. It ignites others like you. Others in the dark, still crawling, still bleeding, still hoping for a reason to believe they can make it. You are that reason now. You are the lighthouse. You are the proof. You were never meant to rise. But rise you did. And now that legacy is no longer just your own. Others have seen it. Others have felt it. The way you move through the world now, you leave marks, not of destruction, but of revelation. They see your scars and realize they can survive theirs. They see your fire and remember they still have embers left. You never set out to lead, but survival has a way of turning the broken into beacons. The same voice that once trembled now commands attention. The hands that once trembled from fear now carry the weight of others who are still learning how to stand. You didn't ask for this burden. You never wanted to be a symbol. But when you walked through your own fire and kept going, others saw it. They heard the echoes of their own silent screams in your voice. And suddenly, they believed. Not in perfection, not in fairy tales, but in endurance, in resistance, in rising from the mud with blood in your mouth and defiance in your eyes. You gave them permission to feel powerful in their pain. You reminded them that breaking doesn't mean ending, that falling isn't the same as failing, that being forgotten doesn't mean you don't matter. And still, even now, the world doesn't quite know what to do with you. You don't fit their molds. You don't follow their rules. You don't bow to their kings. You come with your own crown, your own scars, your own chaos. You walk like the war you survived still lives in your bones, and it does. You carry it, not as a weight, but as a memory, a reminder of everything it took to become who you are. The war didn't end, it just changed shape. You were still fighting, but now you're winning. They'll say you're too much, too intense, too cold, too fierce. That's what they say when they can't control you. That's what they say when your strength reminds them of their weakness. Let them talk. Let them try to find language for something they were never meant to understand. You're not here to be explained. You are here to be reckoned with. Your presence is a prophecy fulfilled, not the kind in books, but the kind etched into the soul of anyone who ever refused to stay broken. There's something holy in the kind of rage that kept you alive, not petty anger, not ego, but the deep, sacred fury that says, I will not die like this. I will not let the world bury me before I've even begun. That kind of rage, it purifies. It burns away everything that's not real. You lost people. You lost dreams. You lost time. But you never lost yourself. Not truly. You just had to fight like hell to find the parts of you they tried to kill. And now that you have them back, now that you've reclaimed every piece, they can never touch you again. You are untouchable now, not because you're perfect, but because you've already lived through the worst. What can they take from you that hasn't already been taken? What can they do to you that you haven't already survived? You've buried versions of yourself more times than you can count, and every time, you rose again. Not cleaner, not lighter, but stronger, sharper, wiser. The world taught you through cruelty, but you learned. And now, you are the lesson. They should have left you alone. They should have let you fade, because now that you've risen, you carry more than just your own story. You carry the weight of every silent fighter, every invisible soul still clawing for breath. You walk for them, you speak for them, you shine for them, and when you fall again, and you will, you'll rise again too, because this path doesn't end. This legacy is still being written. You turned pain into power. You turned absence into presence. You turned invisibility into a roar, and they still don't understand how. But they don't need to. They don't need to know your whole story to know your truth. All they need to see is that you're still here, still standing, still rising, still becoming. You weren't supposed to be anything. You weren't meant to make it. You were supposed to be a cautionary tale, but now you are the proof. That fire doesn't only destroy. Sometimes it creates. There's a moment, quiet, not grand, when you realize no one is coming. No rescue, no savior, just you, your body, your breath, your will. And that's when it happens. That's when something changes. That's when you stop waiting and start building. That's when you stop begging and start claiming. That's when the world begins to bend, slowly, painfully, to your will. Because you will not be denied. You will not be erased. You will not disappear. And now, they follow you. Some in awe, some in silence, some still hoping to see you fall. But it doesn't matter. Their eyes don't define you anymore. Their doubt doesn't shape you. You've learned how to live without their approval. And now, you walk with something they'll never understand. Freedom. Real freedom. The kind forged in the dark. The kind bought with suffering. The kind that leaves scars and burns clean through fear. You're not finished. You're still becoming. Every day is another chapter, another step, another war. But you've already proven more than they ever imagined. You've already risen from places they swore would kill you. And every time you do, the legend grows. Not a fairy tale, not a myth, a warning, a promise, a reminder that even when the world builds walls, some spirits rise like smoke through stone. And now your name carries weight, not because it was given power, but because you dragged it through every kind of storm and made it mean something. You burned it into stone, not with privilege, but with persistence. And when they say your name now, it isn't with pity, it's with respect, with fear, with awe. Because they know what it took. They know how many nights you fought when no one saw you. They know, even if they won't say it, that what you've done is something most never could. You are the monument to the ones they forgot, the broken ones, the silenced ones, the lost ones who never made it out. You carry their ghosts with you, not as a burden, but as fuel. Every one of them lives in your heartbeat. You honor them every time you speak, every time you take another step, every time you look at the world and say, I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere. This legacy was born in the dirt, raised in fire and sharpened by every failure you survived. You didn't just overcome, you transformed. You didn't just heal, you rebuilt. And you didn't just exist, you created meaning in the chaos. That's the part they'll never understand. They'll see the victory, the strength, the thunder of your voice and never realize the price it cost. The nights you wanted to end it, the moments you stared into nothing and felt nothing, stare back. The times you had no one, not even yourself, but you found yourself in the ruins, in the silence, in the aftermath. You became your own reason. You chose to keep going when every part of you screamed to stop. You chose to build when everything you touched crumbled. You chose to rise again and again and again until rising became your nature, until standing back up became the only thing you knew how to do. This is what legacy looks like. Not trophies, not applause, but movement, impact, ripples in the world that won't fade when you're gone. You became something more than they ever allowed you to dream, and that terrifies them, because it means their rules aren't real, their ceilings aren't fixed, their power isn't absolute. You exposed the lie, and now others see it too. You've created a path where there was none, and now someone else will walk it. Someone watching in silence, someone who has nothing left, someone whose hands shake the way yours used to, someone whose world is collapsing, but they see you. They see what you built from the rubble, and in that, they see possibility. That's how legacy works. Not in the moment, but in what follows. In the spark you pass down, in the fire you ignite in someone who thought their flame had gone out. You don't have to know their name. You don't have to see their face. But they will rise because you did. They will find their voice because you used yours. They will choose to fight because they know now that it's possible. And maybe one day, years from now, they'll stand where you are, with their own fire, their own story, their own rise, and they'll whisper your name like a vow, like a battle cry, like a thank you to the stranger who proved that pain does not mean death, that scars are not shame, that survival is not weakness, it is power in its most holy form. So take this moment, look at where you came from, remember it, not to mourn, but to honor. Let the weight of what you survived anchor you, not break you. Let it be the stone you stand on, not the chain around your neck. You have risen, and you will rise again. Every fall, every loss, every betrayal, they are part of the design now. They made you unshakable. You are no longer at war with who you were. You have integrated the fire. You have become your own force, and the world can no longer stop you. It can try. It will. But you are something that cannot be undone, because what you've built, this legacy, was not given. It was taken. And anything taken in blood, in silence, in resistance, is sacred. You weren't meant to rise, but you did. You weren't meant to speak, but now your words carry storms. You weren't meant to matter, but now you are legacy. You are every impossible thing made real, every unspoken dream dragged into daylight, every reason to believe when there's nothing left. You are what happens when the world underestimates a soul that refuses to die. And for that, they will never forget you. Not ever.